Welcome back, Richard. It's good to
All
see you
right.
this morning.
Good morning.
Richard,
You
I am
and
excited about this conversation we're going to have today.
I am too. I am really excited to talk about this topic, endlessly fascinating. So yes, let's get started.
Yeah, we're going to talk about teenagers a little bit.
This
And
is it's scary just to think about it, isn't it? I mean, geez. Okay.
well, I think, adolescence is such an interesting period of development
Right.
because there's so much happening. And at the same time that there's all this stuff happening inside the teenager's body, whenever puberty starts, there's so many things that are happening on the inside.
Right.
That parents and others try to exert extreme and sometimes significant control on the outside, and it creates so much conflict and so many problems.
Right. And we're so distracted by what's going on with their bodies that we forget that there's a brain churning,
Right,
that tab is open
right,
and there's a program running behind the program. And we forget about that. Um, if you're raising a teenager, if you have a child older than 12 or 13, if you don't have children, you're or you have young children, you have children younger than 10 or 11, you're about to encounter another critical phase of raising children to become responsible, polite, and self-sufficient. And it's a completely new adventure because when puberty arrives, things will change in ways that you cannot imagine. When you're dealing with younger children, you can't imagine the massive changes that are going to occur, and you just can't prepare for it. People always say, well, there's no training manual for kids. There's no training manual for adolescents.
right.
Um, it's difficult. But here's the deal. Child development is interesting because newborns are just adorable. I mean, people say, all newborns are cute, right? They're just adorable. They're lovable. Um, but but if they weren't, I think we'd probably consider sending them back
Right.
after you've had a few sleepless nights or you've dealt with a crying baby, a baby that's crying for, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 30, or an hour. You're about ready to send them back, even though they're adorable and cute and sweet and cuddly and they smell good. After a few sleepless nights, you're saying, okay, the fun is over, the novelty is worn off. But they are cute and they are sweet and they are precious. My brother said one time, he said, "Oh, I'd like to just spread her on a piece of toast. They're just so adorable." So we continue to take care of them. All right. We continue to take care of these lovable little smell good babies, even though they are a handful of trouble. Um, until we get to the terrible twos or threes. And
Hmm.
then we look for the return policy again, because all of a sudden, wow, this is not what I signed up for. Because that's the first time that kids really start to struggle for independence. But even then, most kids are still lovable and interesting, so we continue,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And even into elementary school,
Right.
they are learning new things, and they want to experience new things. And so, we dress them up, and we get them involved in sports and all these different things. And so they're a lot of fun. You can start having good conversations with them, and
Mhm.
you don't have to go to the bathroom with them anymore and all this great stuff. But then, you get through all of that, and then puberty arrives.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it arrives, in the middle of the night, and you don't know that it's coming, and then all of a sudden you are just blindsided by
Right.
it.
Now, and understand that that happens to all of us, okay? You are not unique. When
Yeah.
this happens, when puberty arrives, undetected, you're not ready, it's just going to arrive one day, okay? But you're right about elementary school. Those kids are so darn cute in elementary school, right? They are going starting to play sports and they have school plays and they're beginning to play music and they're beginning to go to dance classes. And elementary school kids are still really, really cute. They're totally dependent on us. They're still pretty cooperative, except with homework or chores. But by and large, they're still cooperative and they're fun. And we really are holidays are fun and vacations are fun. These are fun years, the elementary school years. Then puberty arrives. For most of us, the 10 or so years that our species uses to transition from childhood to adulthood are far more challenging than the 10 years that it took us to get to puberty. So if
Right.
you think about kids, you have 10 years to get to puberty. Those are pretty fun years. Kids are cute. We enjoy it. This is fun. Parenting is fun. The next 10 years from puberty on are going to be much more challenging.
Right.
Still interesting, but much more challenging. And if you're raising a newly minted teen, you know exactly what we're talking about because the early teenage years are probably going to be the most challenging.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And it seems as though, when you have a kid in this going through this stage of development, it feels like we're tested on a daily basis. They keep pushing buttons, keep testing limits, and you know, they you know they become sometimes even unrelatable and irrational, and it makes us irrational, and it makes us want to say things that we shouldn't say and that we'll
We
regret.
regret. Right.
um,
Right.
because they'll say it and they won't regret it.
Right.
They'll say really challenging and hard things for us to hear, but but they're going through this process, and it is not there's not much. They stink, and they're
Especially boys.
floppy, and
Right.
they're just there's not a lot of fun. you know there are times, maybe, isolated situations where there's fun and enjoyable, but then you're reminded that, oh, that's right. He hates me. I forgot about that part. For a minute there, I thought that we were back to the good old days.
You might have been, but then they hate you. They love you, and that's why they have two hands. So they push you away with one and pull you to them with the other.
Yeah.
But before you lose your mind, and it's going to test you, you're going to become irrational. But before you do that, let's go back to infancy. Our comments about infancy, and that was a time when they were just so adorable when they're little babies that we tolerate almost anything, and you love them no matter what. You were patient, you were understanding, you were forgiving. Well, she's just a baby. Well, she's just a kid. You had infinite patience, almost infinite patience and understanding. It's just the opposite with a teenager. And
Mhm.
that's the first thing. With infants, we're seeking attachment. With teenagers, we have to detach. We're seeking detachment, or we should be, because that's where they're going. They're going to leave. Okay. So with infants, it's attachment. With teenagers, it's detachment. With infants, we want to bring them into the family. We want to incorporate them into our family. With teenagers, we have to get ready to push them out of the family. Okay. We want to do everything we can for our infants, feed them and change their diapers and bathe them and take care of them. And we must let teenagers do everything for themselves.
Right.
Okay. So it's a completely different kind of parenting.
Right. And that kind of letting go is really difficult. It's really difficult for parents to loosen the bonds that they have, as you said, spent 10 years developing and strengthening. It is really difficult for most parents to sort of let that go. Um,
Mhm.
and most of us just aren't prepared. But, you know, when they're 8, they're very different than when they're 18. When they're 18, you want them to be able to go out and begin their life as independent adults. And if we're not releasing them, or if we're not loosening those bonds, they're going to be stuck with us. And that's the whole purpose of this stage of development.
Right. You remember that wonderful scene from Jurassic Park where he said, nature finds a way.
Yeah.
Okay. Nature gives us a way to accomplish this very difficult task of leaving our children, of pushing our children out of the house.
Right.
Okay.
They
They
become unbearable.
right, right. That's right. You can't wait to get rid of them. No, so with a baby, you do everything you can to keep them close and keep them in your life. But nature makes babies lovable and cute and smell good. Okay. So nature makes it easy for us to care for babies, to care for infants. They're helpless and they're well, nature finds a way to help us get rid of these little of teenagers. We still love our children unconditionally, but we need a way. So nature gives us a way to get rid of them.
Mhm.
And what are those things? Well, they become difficult to be with. Okay. So one of the things there's two things about teenagers that you need to understand. One is that they must separate from us. They're going to become independent. They're going to become self-sufficient, and they're going to replace us with others.
Right.
Just accept that. Okay, you're gonna be replaced. Why am I a parent? Because I no longer am needed. Your goal is to be needed no longer. Okay. Typically, teenagers want more freedom than we're prepared to give them. They want to spend more time alone than we want them to spend, and they want to be with their friends more than they want to be with their family. Just get used to this. They are going to separate. Okay. These are normal and necessary. Okay.
Right.
They so to break these bonds, they argue with us because they want more than we want to give them. And that's pretty universal. I mean, very few parents are saying, look, I want you to stay out longer. I
Right.
want you to stay out. No, we're pulling them back and they're pushing ahead. This is normal and necessary. In order to break loose, they will argue with us, they'll defy us, they'll even lie to us. You have a case right now of lying is sort of a standard repertoire. It's
Right.
something they do every day. At the same time that we're angry that they're battling with us, we're hurt because they're replacing us with others.
Right.
Other people, not only their friends, teachers are smarter than we are. Other friends' parents are smarter than we are. They know more. They're nicer. They're kinder. They're more. So they're replacing us with other people.
Right. Yeah. And this creates, so much friction.
Right.
And if we're not careful, if we allow that friction to exaggerate and to get too far,
Right.
then that's when you start hearing things like, I can't wait until I'm 18,
I
when I
can't
get
wait
like
to get out of
I'm
here.
out of here. I'm never coming back. And teenagers say that, and what they're really saying, of course, is that they just want to be independent and they just want their own to live their own life, and they don't want to have somebody controlling them and everything.
That's right.
We all went through that. We all experienced that during those stages of development.
Mhm.
So if you're doing your job, you're going to hear that. You're going to hear teenagers say those kind of things. So we have to try not to take it too personal.
Right.
But we also have to be careful that we're not worsening it. We're not making it worse by trying to hold on and maintain so much control that they're fighting for their life just to break loose a little bit.
That's right. And we call the teenage years the transition from childhood to adulthood. I don't think there's any 10-year-old who's like, I can't wait to be out of here and be on my own. They know that they can't be. They're still dependent on their parents for everything. Okay. But an 18-year-old, when they say, I can't wait to be out of here, that's kind of a good thing because they now are reaching that point where they know they can exist without you. And that's what we want, isn't it? I mean, we want our children to be able to function without us. So when we hear those words, they might hurt our feelings, but they're also a signal that, oh, okay, I'm succeeding because now my child feels competent enough and confident enough that they can go strike out on their own. That's a good thing. So, two things. One is they're going to separate, they're going to move ahead. They're always going to be pulling you for more freedom, for more responsibility. Second thing is teenagers are wired in such a way, and this is brain function, that the possibility of a reward overwhelms their judgment.
Right.
If you're a teenager and you're standing at a cross and you think, oh wow, I really want that. Oh wow, this would really be fun. This would really be good. This would really be cool. That's going to overwhelm their judgment. It
Right.
just that's just the way their brains are structured differently. And this gives teenagers a gambler's mentality. It's worth the risk.
Right.
Also, at the same time, they're not good at anticipating consequences. How often do you hear parents say, "What in the world were you thinking?" I wasn't, because I
Right.
don't anticipate consequences if I'm a teenager. Okay. And they're always after the next thrill. The teenagers are all, they're just junkies. They're looking for the next thrill, whether it's a video game or going out or doing something, but they're looking for the next thrill. So what do we have as a teenager? We have a reward-seeking gambler who doesn't consider the consequences of their behavior. Sound familiar?
Right. But and I think it's important for parents to recognize that, that it's not that they don't know the consequences. They're just not considering them. How very, very often we talk to parents and we talk to teenagers, and teenagers know if I do this, I'm going to get in trouble. And then you say, well, why did you do that? Well, I didn't think that they would catch me. I didn't think that they would find out.
Right.
Well, but don't they find out every time? Well, yeah, but I thought it would be different this time. Or, so it's
Or
not
sometimes they say they don't catch me every time.
right.
So that gambler's mentality, maybe this is one of those times when I'll get away with it.
Exactly. And so they have this mentality of, I want to experience all that I can experience. They don't think about the consequences. They jump to those things. Now, obviously, there are those teenagers that are burdened with like depression or anxiety, and
Right.
so they are
Mhm.
they are much more behaviorally restrained. They're
Yeah.
absolutely those kids.
Right.
Those they experience different challenges later, but the majority of kids, teenagers, they go through this. They experience this.
That's right. And so this drive to separate, and they have that. Well, why do they have this risk-taking, adventure-seeking, I'll take a chance mentality? Well, and whether you want to hear this or not, it's about reproduction. Hard stop. However else you want to dress up puberty, puberty is about reproduction. I mean, that's why puberty hits, is because you are now going to, this era, this stage of development is about reproduction. And to reproduce, to search for a mate, we have to search somewhere other than our family of origin.
Right.
Right? So we are biologically driven to produce, to reproduce, which means we have to leave our family of origin.
And if you think about it, parents, what bigger risk is there than leaving home?
That's right.
Uh, You're the place where you've lived for, well, let's just say 18 years, the place where you've
Right.
lived for 18 years, your entire life, the people that have helped you and provided for you and taken care of you your entire life, you have to leave them behind in
Right.
order to find a mate or find, a partner. That that is, talk about risk taking. That is the biggest risk that you're going to take in your life.
If you're not a risk taker, you're not going to leave.
Right.
Okay. So teenagers are biologically risk takers because they have to be in order to leave the comfort of and the safety of home.
Right.
Now, so puberty, reproduction, leaving. You're going to break away because you have to break away if you're going to reproduce your species. And nature is driving you to reproduction. It does that with all species, including ours. Okay. We can dress it up, but we're driven to reproduction. You have to keep the DNA going. Now, here's the stunning part of this. Do we
And
have time
again,
for this? Do we have
again,
time for
thinking
this?
about how biology prepares us for this, how biology sets the stage for this.
In a paper, and this absolutely astonishing. So if you're a parent, hang on to your seat. In a paper published this is in the Journal of Neuroscience, this group of researchers from Stanford studied 46 kids, ranged in age from 7 to 16. And what they studied was the effects of a mother's voice on the brains of the children in each age group. All right, so think of you hook a kid up to an MRI, functional MRI, and you have a recording of the mother's voice. The mother's talking to the child, and they're measuring the brain's response to the mother's voice. In young children, the 7, 8, 9-year-olds, mothers' voices activated not just the hearing centers of the brain, which is what you'd expect, of course, but also the reward center of the brain. It lit up that, oh, this is good and this is fun, the reward centers of the brain. But at about age 13, puberty, the preference shifted from the mother's voice to a stranger's voice.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is absolutely astonishing. I mean, to me, this is one of the most important studies that's ever been done. Think about what they're saying, that about age 13, the preference shifts so that the stranger's voice lights up the reward centers more than the mother's voice
Right.
does. What does that mean? We're searching for other things, other voices. That's what's most rewarding. Right. So they're biologically driven to leave you.
Right.
The whole system is rigged against you if you're a parent, but
Right.
it needs to be so that children can become independent adults.
Right. And so when parents, when you think about, that teenager, and as soon as you start to talk to them and they give that sigh, or they close their eyes, they slow blink, or they roll their eyes or something, again, the areas of their brain, the reward centers of their brain, they're no longer stimulated by the sound of your voice. Instead, they're hearing you, but they're not really interested.
They're not interested in what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's not because they're being rude. It's not because they are being spoiled or anything like that. It's just, again, the way that our biology is made and the way that our biology develops, that we have to create that separation.
And if you're a parent, especially the parent of a young teenager, 12, 13, 14, and you hear parents say, she just tunes me out. Absolutely spot on. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But she's not tuning you out of rudeness. She's tuning you out because of biology.
Right.
And she's not doing this on purpose.
Right.
It's just that your voice, your parent voice, means less now than it did a couple of years ago.
Right. And so we're not saying that that's okay, that, your kids don't have to listen to you anymore or anything like that. But what we're saying is that we have to recognize that this is what's happening and shift the way that we're parenting. And so when you think about what we need to do as parents, is we need to, if our voice isn't creating or eliciting the same response, then maybe that's a time where we need to shift from talking more to listening more. Right. We need to listen to them, and avoid asking those deep probing questions. Don't pressure them to talk, but when they speak, listen to what they're saying. Obviously, you can ask questions. Obviously, you can try to get more information about things that you need to get information about. But we're not, applying more pressure and pushing them further isn't going to reap any more rewards for what you're looking for.
Yeah, demanding that they pay attention to you isn't going to buy you much.
Right.
When you pick up your kids at school, or your kids come home from school, if you have an 8 or 9-year-old and say, hey, how are things at school today? They're probably going to tell you. They're going to say, because the mother's voice elicits these feel-good feelings in the kid's brain. And so he's going to say, oh, well, we did this, and Johnny did this, and the teacher said that, and we had 3 fights today, and we got to watch a movie. And you ask the teenager, and you get nothing.
Right.
Why? Because the mother's voice doesn't have the same effect on a teenager. It doesn't excite them the way it excites an 8 or 9 year old.
Absolutely.
And so, and you ask if you don't, you can't ask direct questions because you're probably not getting an answer. You can't pressure them to talk. You can't make them talk about what went on in school today. They're probably going to sit there and be silent because conversation with you isn't nearly as important as it used to be when they were 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
Right.
Now,
So,
another thing that parents we're encouraging parents to do is, when you are listening, you're going to hear a lot of sometimes a lot of nonsense, but you're going to hear a lot of information. You're going to hear a lot of stuff, but you're going to also hear a lot of feelings. And it's important that we validate their feelings.
right.
A lot of times parents will say, "Oh, you don't have to feel like that," or "Oh, you don't need to." Don't do that. Don't tell them how to feel. Don't tell them
Right.
how to emote about some of these things.
Right.
Hear them and validate their feelings. Oh, I can understand how you'd be upset about that. That would be kind of difficult. As absurd as what it sounds like to you, this it's maybe very serious to them. And so,
That's right.
validate their feelings and don't try to solve their problems, but just acknowledge that they're feeling something.
Yeah, and we know that most of what kids experience when they're in seventh or eighth grade, they'll come home and they're 12 or 13 and they have some relationship problem. Yeah, it seems trivial to us, but it's not trivial when you're 13. And
Right.
so you have to listen carefully. You have to validate their feelings. Don't solve their problems for them. Don't say, well, I'll take care of that. I'll talk to the teacher. I'll talk to his mother. No, no, no. You let them solve their own problems. You just validate, say, yeah, I can see why. Yeah, that would make me angry too. I can see why you feel that way. Just validate their feelings. You
Right.
don't have to solve their problems. You just have to acknowledge that they have very strong feelings about certain things, even if they're not important when you're an adult, they're important when you're 12 or 13.
Right. We also have to work towards,
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah.
And part of that is we can't continue to be a dictator. We can't tell them what to do, when to do it all the time. We have to, again, let go a little bit and trust that they're going to make decisions that they need to make. And, you know, trust that they have learned something over the past 10 or 15 years that we've been teaching them and that they're going to make good decisions, and trust them. They're going to break that trust. It's going to happen. Just accept that.
Mhm.
But then you got to give them opportunities to build that trust again.
That's right. Remember, they're on a journey from childhood to adulthood. They have to learn how to do this. They're going to make mistakes in the learning process. That's part of the learning process. They're going to make mistakes. Let them make those mistakes. You're there to catch them. You're providing a safety net. That's your job. But but they have to be allowed. So trust them, even when they make bad decisions, even when they know that they shouldn't do what they're planning to do. They have to learn these lessons. Best to learn them while you're still there to protect them.
Absolutely. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you're offering praise and encouraging them and, telling them that they're doing a good job. Kids,
Right.
teenagers, yeah, they want to be independent. And you said a minute ago, with one arm they push you away and the other arm they pull you closer. They don't want you all up in their business and everything all the time. But at the same time, they want to hear that they're doing a good job. They want to hear that, man, you know what? I really appreciate that you came in, before midnight last night. I really appreciate that, I saw that you did this, and so I really that's a great job. I appreciate that. But give them
That's right.
praise and control yourself, when you're dealing with that.
That's right. Control your emotions. You know, when you're raising a teenager, you're probably going to have many more reasons to be critical than complimentary. All right. It just comes with the territory because they're pushing boundaries. They're pushing all the time. They're
Right.
pushing against curfews. They're pushing against rules. They're pushing against schedules. They're pushing against all of your values, whether it doesn't matter what they are, food, religion. They're always pushing against you, which is part of the separation process. You have to find reasons to praise them. You're going to have a lot of reasons to criticize them. They're going to give you plenty of reasons to be critical, but try to find some reasons to praise them. It shows them two things. It shows them that you're still watching, that you are observant, that you are watching what they're doing. And it shows that they do care. My parents still care about me, and it matters what I do, and it matters to them what I do.
Right.
But geez, what you just said at the end, control your emotions. I mean, man, you're going to have lots of reasons to go ballistic with your teenagers, but you have to stay calm so that they get to your calm rather than you going to their chaos.
Right.
Okay? Don't go to their emotions. They're young and raw. Don't go there. Stay calm so that they come to yours.
Right. And some of the last things is, doing things together.
Hmm.
You know, at our house, we have our evening meals together. I know that a lot of families don't do that, but sharing regular meals, going for walks together. Yeah, you may get a little pushback and stuff with some of those things, but
Hmm.
it's 30 minutes. Just doing some of these things together
Right.
continues to have some connection. You continue to have some relationship with them. You're not up in their business all the time. You're not going with them everywhere. You're not following them everywhere. But
Yeah,
it
right.
allows you time to spend with them, to know a little bit about what's going on in their life. But maybe even more importantly, it allows you to recognize their moods and what's going on with them, so that you can be observant about any mood changes that they're going through, or any relationship issues that they're having. Because if you're listening instead of talking so much, they're going to share about some of those things, and you're going to know a little bit more about what's going on in their life.
Right. Yeah, when we tell parents talk less and listen more, now that there's plenty of it, there's evidence we're giving you today that they're not terribly interested in what you say to begin
Right.
with.
Right.
So talk less, listen more.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that is where we'll wrap up for today. Teenagers is a fascinating topic. They
They're
are
going
fascinating creatures. So
right.
we will certainly share more with them. But if you have questions, or you have concerns or issues or anything like that you'd like to hear us talk more about, write to us and let us know. We'd be happy to take on any topic and try to share what we can. So,
Right.
all right, that's it for today. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.